Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome and join us on Partnerships for Profit as we welcome Jordan M. Jones, one of the nation's top truck accident attorneys and a fierce advocate for transportation safety. Jordan has fought tirelessly to hold negligent trucking and commercial vehicle companies accountable, achieving life-changing results for victims and their families. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you too. So to dive right in, what's the scariest behind the scenes secret about the trucking industry that most people don't know? Like, to start, I'm really interested in peeling back the curtain a little bit. From your perspective, what's something about the trucking industry that people need to know about?
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, there's a lot. I mean, how much time do you have? But if I had to pick out one thing, like the most shocking thing, I would probably say the fact that the insurance requirements haven't been updated since like the 1980s. I represent plaintiffs. It's 100% of my practice. And like when they originally like overhauled trucking, like deregulation, all that stuff, they actually set the minimums, the insurance minimums in 1980, and they were codified and adopted in 1985. And they're still the same today.
Wow. So they're older than almost as older, if not a bit older than me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So like, the minimums, generally the minimum is 750,000. Like that's the same as it was in 1985. If you adjust that for inflation, it should be like $3 million today. And that's becoming a really, really big problem because, a lot of people are catastrophically injured or hurt or killed. And it's just like, there's not enough coverage there, right? So that's a really big problem.
There absolutely isn't. Yeah. Like I was in an accident and mine was my spinal cord was injured.
Oh, yikes.
And they rebuilt my neck out of titanium, kind of that sort of situation.
Gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I'm going to get the big bucks now because I had to go in for the big bucks surgery.
Right.
And no, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
that happens a lot. It happens more frequently than you might think, honestly. So
I guess it makes sense if the last time that premium was updated was before I was born.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it's just crazy. And I'll tell you when it gets really bad is like when there's a lot of people like a lot of rear enders, like the truck will hit like a line of cars and there's like, 3, 4, 5 people who are all injured. And it's like, 750 or like usually $1 million. Usually what I see is 1 million. Kind of rare these days to see 750, but you got like 5, 6 people that are hurt or like, maybe a fatality or something. It's just like that goes like this. Right. So, yeah, that's a major problem. One of the bigger challenges I think right now in the industry from, certainly from my perspective and trying to get recoveries from my clients, certainly. So, yeah.
Wow. So, have you ever come across a case where a trucking company completely ignored obvious safety risks and what happened? It's unsettling to think about, but like, tell me.
A trucking company? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Right.
No, all the time. And it's just, varying degrees of severity. I mean, listen, to be fair, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations are very, very cumbersome. And it's like, in my opinion, I don't think you can comply with every single thing, right? Because it's so cumbersome. Yeah. But like, there's some kind of like ticky-tack stuff, like, paperwork and things like that. It's not a big deal, but I see some like really bad stuff, like, because people with horrible driving records that are kind of put behind the wheel. And like, I don't know if you're asking me for like one specific case example, I think one of the worst ones I ever saw was this guy. I'm not joking you. This truck driver, I think his MVR, which is his driving record. I'm not joking. I think it was like 15 pages long. Like it was just every, just tickets.
And that guy was given a big wheel?
Pardon me?
And that guy was given a big wheel to drive?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And in the, like, I kind of asked him, I said, well, how did this come about? And it turned out there was some sort of like connection. Like he like knew the manager. So I don't know what it was. There was some sort of connection there, and they hired this guy. And he just blasted this line of cars and hit a whole bunch of people. And one, my client was catastrophically injured. He actually ended up paralyzed. And it was just like, it's just really frustrating to me, because it's like, who thought this was a good idea, right? So that's
allowed to happen when things like OSHA exist.
Well, yeah. Well, it's more so for the trucking side. It's more so the FMCSR, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, that's just really frustrating to me, because it's kind of like, it's not rocket science. It's like, hey, if someone's driving record is 15 pages long, maybe you shouldn't give them a big rig.
Yeah, exactly.
Just almost seems like common sense, but yeah, I don't know. That's one that stands out in my mind. But I've got tons of examples. Like I could sit here and give you 20 examples if you wanted to, but
Well, it's impressive. Just knowing, there are certain things in life that just seem so simple. Sure. But like, what is the thing that's keeping the obvious, simple solution, from going into effect and saving lives,
Right. Yeah. And I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't.
Yeah. But it's always something to be like, I'll file that away for my Save the World days.
Yeah.
Was there a moment during a case when you knew you were about to win big for a client?
Yeah. There's been a few. One that stands out in my mind. Well, actually, a little background information. Kind of what I've seen maybe in like the last 5-6 years or so is kind of like you have nobody, like everybody wants to be in transportation, but nobody wants to be a trucking company, if that makes any sense.
Oh, okay.
So kind of, and because there's like a lot of risk, and there's a lot of, regulations, and the margins are, it's getting harder and harder to make money because fuel's going up, labor's going up, everything's going up. Right. One that stands out in my mind, there was this company, and basically what they were doing, they had DOT operating authority, but they didn't have any trucks. They did not own a single truck. Okay. And basically what they were doing is they're going around getting all these contracts with some pretty big customers. Right. And they're saying, hey, we'll move your freight for you and all this stuff, but they didn't have any trucks. What they would do. Yeah. They had a bunch of sub haulers, and they were like giving them trailers and say, and then basically pretty much running the company. And they were talking to the drivers and dispatching them and telling them where and scheduling. They were literally doing everything except it was like the sub haulers, right? So they were trying to get out of the case, and we had two motion for summary judgments actually, and beat the first one. And then the judge said, well, I'm gonna let you do some more discovery. You can refile it again in the future. And then refiled again, and we beat it again. Because we were able to show that they were the employer. They were running everything. It was their contracts, and it was they were dispatching everybody, controlling everybody. So it was kind of like an agency vicarious liability theory, kept them in. And as soon as we won that, I knew the case was over. It was a unfortunately, very significant case, a wonderful lady. And we ended up getting a really good recovery on that one. Yeah.
Wow. And I feel like that subcontracting thing, it's got to be like quasi, popular, at least around here. I'm in the New Orleans area. Yeah. And I feel like there are a lot of people that own their own trucks around here, and then do contracts with other companies. And so Yeah, I can see that being a pretty prevalent thing.
Right. And even what you're describing, so what you're describing, it's like, it's called owner operators. And it's just like they have a truck and they lease on with another company. And that's very common. And like a lot of people do that. But like if you're like the company you lease on with is still responsible for you. Like it's called statutory employment. So like you're still like under their DOT number, and they're still responsible for you. Versus what I'm seeing is like, and especially the brokers are doing this a lot now too, is they're calling themselves something else. So whether it's a broker or they're calling themselves like a coordinator or what, insert fictitious name here. What they're doing in practice is running a trucking company, and they're kind of like divorcing themselves from all the risk because, these guys go out and they hit somebody and kill somebody or something, and they're kind of absolving themselves and saying, oh, well, we're not vicarious liable and, yada, yada, yada. So I'm seeing a lot more of that versus what you're talking about, the owner operator. So
Okay.
yeah, it's getting hairy out there, honestly.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I bet.
Yeah.
And thank you for clearing that up. I mean,
yeah, of course.
yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
So do huge settlements actually make trucking companies change their behavior?
No.
Or is it just the cost of doing business for them? Like what's the deal there?
No, not at all. I think, well, number one, a lot of it's insurance, right? And so like, and listen, this is just my opinion. Okay. This is just my opinion. I don't think they really care. What I think they care about is verdicts and the publicity. It's bad. You get hit by a big verdict. It's bad publicity, and then kind of it starts going around, and it's on the news, and everyone knows. Oh my God, XYZ Trucking is doing all this crazy stuff. In the smaller companies, like the mom and pops, like they become uninsurable because they're and all they do is they just shut down, and then they open up a new company, and it's like literally like same people, the same trucks, the same drivers, and they just call it, they shut it down, they start up a new one, and all of a sudden they're insurable again. So
wow, that's so fascinating. Well, I mean, you can just okay. I feel like I've had things stalk me harder than that.
Yeah. It's kind of bad. But one thing that I started doing, I started doing this relatively recently, maybe like in the last 3 years or so, 3-4 years, is to your point, because I don't think they care about the settlements. I don't think they care. So one thing I started doing is trying to negotiate safety reforms as like part of the settlement. So like my clients will accept X, but you also have to implement these reforms, and getting a little bit of traction that way with smaller carriers. I mean, the bigger carriers, it's just like it's like a non-starter. They won't even like entertain it, So that's been a challenge. But I mean, to the extent we're getting reforms from the smaller carriers, I think that's a win. I think that's a safety win. So that's something I really want to kind of focus on, and I'm trying to spread the word and encourage other lawyers to do that too, because that's something I think that could be really meaningful in terms of helping people and just keeping the road safer. So
absolutely, because I mean, you can fight for recovery all the time.
Sure.
But of losses or whatever. But what are you really doing at the end of the day if you're not making it better for the people in the future?
Well, exactly.
That come up against a similar issue.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I was you're in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans in March, and I was there for an ABA conference. It's kind of funny because it's like, this is kind of a funny story. And by the way, I want to preface this by saying I'm virtually certain I will never be invited back again. But
a lot of people say that about coming to New Orleans.
Yeah. So they had it's technically open to both sides, like plaintiff and defense, but for whatever reason, it's like all defense. It's like defense lawyers, insurance companies, trucking companies, and I was an invited speaker to sit on a panel, myself and one other really good trucking lawyer, a gentleman from Ohio who's tremendous, and then 2 defense lawyers. And I kind of sat there over this thing for like the 2 days, and the insurance companies and the trucking companies and the defense lawyers, all I heard about was, people have lost their minds. No one understands the value of a dollar. Like, the verdicts are too high. We need tort reform. We need this, we need that. We need McAfee. We need caps and all this stuff. And then, so I sat through this for like 2 days, and then I go up on my panel, and I say this back to them, and I said, tell you one thing I didn't hear. No, nobody said we need better safety. Right. So what about, like, you guys are talking about like the cure after the fact. So why don't you just prevent the loss in the first place? And you would think I had 2 heads, like the way I was getting the stares. So I don't know, but that's kind of my point, right? I mean, don't try to fix it after the fact. Stop it from happening in the first place. So I don't know, but I'm like I said, I am virtually certain I will never be invited back there again. but I hope I got through to somebody. I hope, even if I got through to one person.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, because it's that simple thing, like getting back to these, like, I mean, this is everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten kind of things. Like,
right? Seriously, one would think, right?
Right? If it doesn't feel fair, maybe it isn't fair. So, what's the number one thing drivers should do when they see a semi truck on the highway?
Yeah, you mean like just in your passenger vehicle? Is that what you mean?
Just like, shifting
Yeah.
gears a bit to prevention and safety for everyday drivers, or just kind
Yeah.
of what, also along the lines of what we're talking about
Yeah, what
is,
I would tell everybody and what I do myself is just drive defensively. Because like driving a truck is hard. I actually kind of a little known fact. I actually went to truck driving school and I
Mhm.
drove trucks and it's hard. Like it's really hard. And like honestly, like it's just very challenging. And then also too, like the truck drivers, it's a challenging industry, and I think they kind of get taken advantage of a lot by the companies and the brokers. So they become very prone to mistakes just because of like time pressures and just the inherent difficulty of the job, and they make a lot of mistakes. So I think just driving defensively, like
Yeah.
when I see a truck on the road, my assumption is that they are going to do something wrong. They're going to do something they're
Mhm.
not supposed to do. And like I account for that in my driving.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I think maybe over the years, it's actually, I know for sure I avoided at least one accident, possibly two, but there's an asterisk on the second one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's what I would tell.
I
That's what I tell
yeah, I have a
everybody.
lot of .5 asterisks in my stories, like, and
Right. Yeah.
half
Yeah.
the time,
So
right,
yeah, that's what I tell everybody. Just drive defensively around trucks.
right. When I was growing up and, learning how to drive,
Mhm.
my mom would always say, like, let's just pretend like every big truck that you see on the road, like that they've been driving for too many hours.
For sure.
Would just be
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah.
assume, because that guy's at work. Like, we're
Hmm.
driving to the store. Like,
Yeah.
they're at
Yeah.
work, and maybe they, are a little
Yeah.
tired.
Well, no, yeah, and that's a really big issue in the industry because it's like because again, just because of like industry pressures and costs going up, like a lot of times drivers they're going over hours, so I mean they're on ELDs now, and you're technically not supposed to be able to cheat them, but people just unplug them or they go back and edit them, or
Mhm.
they'll be like a co-driver, but it's like the same guy. Like I had a case.
Yeah.
These are like fictitious names, but like it was like one guy, but there was like two drivers on the ELD. And
Mhm.
one guy's name, and again, these are fictitious names. One guy's name was Michael S, and then his co-driver was M. Smith. And he would switch. He would Michael S ran out of hours, so he'd switch
Yeah.
over to M. Smith
Oh my
and keep
gosh.
driving.
That's
So
so fast. I wish that was like, if that was a thing I could do with my work. Like, oh, well, I ran out of power. Let me get,
right,
let me get my alter
So
ego in over here on
yeah,
this.
seriously.
So I think she has more energy than I do.
Right. It's like what's that show on Apple called where they go into work?
Oh,
A
we're
great show. I love it. I can't remember the name of it
no,
right now.
because it's called, it's like
Oh,
severance.
Severance. Yeah. It's like Severance.
Yeah, right. That
Right. Yeah.
would be ideal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously the show makes it not, but
Sure. Yeah.
no spoilers. um, so what would you say is the first thing someone should do if they're ever in an accident with a commercial vehicle?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it just depends on like the severity of it and like the circumstances. Obviously, safety and health have to be number one. So, if you're like, the last thing you want to do is become a hazard in the roadway. So if like, it's not thankfully too serious and you can move out of the roadway. I mean, that's a good thing to do. Call the
Mhm.
police obviously is another high priority one, and then and get medical treatment if warranted. And I think even if not warranted, just because a lot of times it sneaks up on you later once your adrenaline goes down and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's always good to get checked out. Like even like I had a guy, he was fine. Like he walked away from the scene, went home. He woke up the next day, couldn't move. It turned out he had like a really severely fractured sacrum, which is like it's like
Wow.
it's a pretty big deal. You break your sacrum. So,
Huge. Yeah.
but yeah, so those are those things. And then kind of the other really important thing is I always tell people like contact an attorney, like just so at least you know what your rights are and so you can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a case, maybe you don't. I mean, most lawyers in the PI space, they'll do a free consultation.
Mhm.
99% probably more than that actually. But yeah, just find out what your rights are and just what you're entitled to claim, what you're not entitled to claim, so you can at least like kind of make an informed decision for yourself. So that's kind of what I tell folks.
When I was in my accident,
Yeah.
my mom had like recently, and she was driving, she had recently had hip surgery,
Oh,
which
geez.
again, I don't know why she was driving, but she's a stubborn lady.
Yeah.
And so I immediately flew into, and then the other girl, she was bleeding a little bit. So I thought, clearly I'm fine,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Clearly I'm just totally like, Mom, you're not allowed to move. I'm gonna go talk to the other person,
Right.
and I'm gonna handle everything. And then they kept asking me, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you?" I was like, "I'm great. I'm
Yeah.
fine."
Yeah.
And then like everybody left, and the adrenaline started to come down, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was dying.
Yep. Yeah.
It
That's
was like the
that's how it
minute
goes. That's
it
how it
was
goes.
like 30 minutes after everybody drove away, and I was driving my mom's car, and I was like, "Oh no, like this is." And so it takes some time, and sometimes I hear it takes days,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even longer, to really figure out that, like, hey, I'm not okay, because that adrenaline, I mean, our body chemistry is really something to it's really something up in there going on. Like, there's so many ways in which our body naturally just fights back,
Yeah. No,
that needs to.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You're absolutely right.
So, what drew you specifically to trucking accident law instead of other personal injury fields?
Yeah. Dumb luck. So the story goes, I was, there's a lot of backstory to this, but the Cliff Notes version is, I ended up clerking at a personal injury law firm, actually in Michigan. That's where I
Mhm.
went to law school in Detroit. And I never thought in a million years I would do PI. I had no interest in doing PI whatsoever. I just kind of fell into it, and I was, working at this firm, and ended up really liking it. It was a great firm, and the owner went on vacation to, I forget, I think he went to Costa Rica or something, and he was gone for like 2 weeks. And then he came back, and I was sitting in my little cubicle, and he like came out of the door, like I was kind of like right across from the door, and he walked in the door. He walks up, he's like, "I had an epiphany when I was in Costa Rica." He's like, "How would you like to be a trucking lawyer?" And I was like,
Oh,
"Sign me up." I didn't even know there was such a thing. So,
right?
yeah.
It was earlier today when I was reading notes about you that I'm like, this is a whole specialty? This is a whole thing?
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, so he got me, and at the time I was, like I said, I was a law clerk. So I got passed the bar, got hired on. And he started sending me to all these like seminars, and then
Mhm.
also it was a pretty large firm. So like one thing that, like, a huge advantage I had is they just had so many cases.
Mhm.
Like it was a good sized firm, and they always had trucking cases, and like varying degrees of severity. Like some of them were, thankfully, like relatively minor, like, kind of lower impact stuff. Some of them were fatalities, like very significant.
Yeah.
But and I got to work on just tons and tons and tons of trucking cases. Like,
Yeah.
I've been out, what year is it? 2025. So I've been out, this is my 13th year.
Wow.
And I've handled well over 200 trucking cases. And I know it says 100 on my website. It's for sure over 200, and probably staring down 300. And that was just, because I worked at that big firm, and I had so many trucking cases all the time,
So you
constantly.
got those what is it that they call the 10,000 hours in?
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
your 10,000 hours in pretty quickly there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it
Becoming a
was good,
true expert,
Yeah, yeah,
pretty quick.
exactly. Yeah.
So, what's one case that changed your life as a lawyer and as a person? Just looking back
Oh
on your
boy.
career, is there one
Yeah.
particular case that
Um,
stands out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple, for different reasons, but this is a long time ago. I think maybe, like, God, this might have been like 2015, 2016, maybe. It was kind of like one of my first, like big trucking cases, and it was given to me because nobody thought it was a big trucking case. Kind of like, I think I was a 2-year lawyer, or whatever, 2-3-year lawyer, and it was a liability issue. That was the problem. It was just kind of this big mess, and it was just, and I worked it up really well and did awesome, and
Mhm.
took some great depositions, and long story short, I ended up getting, we got like into the 7-figure recovery, and it was just kind of like shocking. Everyone's like, what's going on here? How did this happen? That was kind of good for me because it like made me realize like, wow, I can like actually do this and I can be good at this.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the challenge of it too. It's just very, very challenging. It's a lot different than just auto cases or whatever. So that was a good one in terms of like building my confidence. And then a recent one, I tried a case last year in October against it was against a trucking company and the broker. And broker cases are really hard. And as far as I know, I think there's only been like 3 broker cases like ever in the United States that actually went to jury trial. And I believe I was the third. And we prevailed. Wow. Yeah, we prevailed at trial against the trucking company, but not against the broker.
Okay.
And that one really hurt. That one really hurt because I felt like, right or wrong, but I felt like everybody got screwed except for the broker. And I also felt like the broker was in the best position to prevent this from even happening. But just because of the way the law is, because you have to deal, like when you have broker cases, something called F4A preemption. It's like, I'm going to mess this up. It's the Federal Aviation Administration Authorization Act of 1995 or 1994 or something. But anyways, we call it F4A is what we call it. You got to like deal with that. And then and that's, arguably gives the broker immunity. Then if you get past that, there's all these other issues you got to deal with. So, really ran the gauntlet to get to the trial and then didn't go my way at trial. So that one really, really hurt. And I just felt like, you kind of hear on the news and people talk about like, big corporations are kind of screwing everybody over. And I never really kind of subscribed to that thought. But then I felt like I kind of saw it, like seriously, like I felt like everybody, like, the truck driver, the people that got hurt, like their family, the truck driver's family, like just everybody was just so devastated by this thing. And the broker initially didn't even know about it. Like they found out about it from the lawsuit, right? And I just felt like, everybody's life was just, kind of stopped that day. And they just kind of went on business as usual. And that really, really bothered me and made me reflect on things that maybe I could have done differently. And that one just sticks with me. That one haunts me. It really does. But
yeah.
And
I mean, think about too, like now you've become the guy, who's in a really good position to make safety changes.
I hope so.
For the future,
Yeah.
and because you have certainly, I mean, it's fascinating to me that like there's only been a handful of these trucking cases go all the way, and yours was like one of the first 3.
Yeah. Well, well, the 2 things about that. That's for the broker specifically, and that's as far as I know. Like I could be wrong. Like I just I'm
just saying that like you're definitely an expert here, and you're in a position to change everything for the good for the future.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and I think kind of on the broker thing, that's one of the I think a huge problem for the consumer right now for people like you and me on the roads. Is like the brokers have just gotten so big, like they're huge. And
okay, so and just for explain to like me, like I was in high school or a kid or something.
Oh, sure.
So, like the difference between the trucking company and the broker.
Yeah.
Let's cover that. So like anybody that's listening can truly fully understand.
Okay, sure. So in a traditional like trucking model or transportation model, there's like your shipper who hires the trucking company to deliver the goods to the receiver. So that's kind of like your basic transaction. There's a shipper, trucking company, receiver, right?
Yeah.
And then what started happening, I don't even know when, I think in the 80s, is like the shippers were kind of like, we're not really good at finding motor carriers and it's cumbersome and it's hard and, blah, 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 blah. So then someone came up with the idea like, hey, well, let's make these freight brokers. And basically what they do is the shippers just started going to the broker and the brokers will go out and they'll find like the motor carrier and they'll, set everything up and give them the information. And then they kind of like skim a little bit off the top. So like, shipper pays broker X, broker pays motor carrier Y, right? And they kind of keep the difference. And that's how they make their profit. And it's a good model, like in theory, and it is helpful and it does solve a real problem in the industry. But I think the issue now is the brokers are just out of control. Like number one, they're huge. Like they're,
and that really removes them from an enormous amount of risk.
Exactly.
And
You
so
just hit
they're
the
just
nail right on
doing
the
this
head.
money collecting
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
where they don't have a lot of responsibility.
Exactly. Like the biggest one is C.H. Robinson. C.H. Robinson is a publicly traded company, a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't own it. They don't own a single truck. Like they literally don't own a truck, but they move like tons and tons and tons of freight. And they hire kind of like smaller companies, whatever, and they go out and they hit somebody. And C.H. Robinson, well, they say, oh, it's not our problem. He's not our employer. He's not our driver. We're not a motor company. We're just a
Yeah.
broker, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really big problem because because you kind of they have their kind of like their boot on everybody's throat, and like it's hard for the truck driver and the smaller companies to make a living in the industry. And it's just, it's kind of becomes sort of a race to the bottom in terms of like safety and quality. And the brokers just don't care. And again, they have this F4A preemption half the time. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of a mess nationally. So it depends where you are, if you're going to get immunity or not. So like if you're in the Ninth Circuit, which covers California, like you can sue a broker. If you're in for the 11th Circuit, you cannot sue a broker. Like there, so it's kind of a circuit split. I think one day the Supreme Court's going to take it up and make the law of the land, but it just makes it tough. It's just it's not what the law was intended to do, and it's not. The freight brokers are not supposed to be a de facto trucking company with no risk and no regulation.
Yeah.
So,
right. And it takes us back to kindergarten. If it feels unfair, maybe it is.
Dude. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. So that's something I watch closely, and we'll see what happens. But
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a pleasure to get to talk with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan Jones, for coming on with us today. And I can't wait to speak with you again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and you were wonderful. I had a lot of fun.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.